Thanks for choosing ABC 15 News at 6. I'm Katie Rammel.
And I'm Steve Irvin. We begin tonight with the battle broiling over Arizona's voter registration deadline. Since the deadline was extended, more than 7,000 people just in Maricopa County have registered. But the courtroom fight playing out right now could end with their votes getting tossed out.
ABC 15's Nicole Valdez finding out what this means for those thousands of Arizona voters who just want their voice to count.
A black market, wherever.
Every day, there's several hundred, if not thousand, Arizonans casting their ballots, voting in person and dropping them off. This South Phoenix Vote Center busy Monday afternoon, but behind the scenes, election officials, even state leaders, arguing over the rules.
What I guess this highlights is that it's just the reality that there's a whole bunch of technical stuff happening when you go to cast your vote that you don't see.
Tom Collins heads the Clean Elections Commission. His organization, one of many voter advocacy groups leading the charge in making sure voters know what's going on, what's changing, and how to make sure their votes count. So he wants to make sure people know the deadline to register has changed and may change again.
People making the argument that says, look, hey, if I registered on October 5th and the deadline was October 5th, somebody who comes in on October 7th or October 8th and registered, that person's vote could essentially cancel my vote out, and that's not fair.
Last week, on what seemed like the 11th hour, a federal judge extended the voter registration deadline from October 5th to the 23rd, giving Arizonans an extra 18 days to register because of COVID-19. The argument made by voter advocacy group Mi Familia Vota.
Look, the deadline as it stands isn't fair in this context because the opportunities to register to vote were limited, so we should account for that.
But the pushback came not long after. Arizona's Attorney General arguing that should have never happened and, along with the Republican National Committee, demanded it be reversed, arguing we're too close to the election to be changing the rules. But could that mean your vote, if you registered after the 5th, won't count? Collins says,
will be a difficult bell to unring. We're a week into this. That means we have a week's worth of potential new registrants. That's a significant number of people to go back through and try to say, oh, sorry, you complied with what the federal court in Arizona said was the law, but we don't think that was the law anymore, so you're out of luck. I just think that is that would create a terrible precedent.
So you don't really foresee any major problems for voters taking advantage of this new deadline as of now?
I don't. I really don't. I mean, if folks are complying with a deadline that's been extended, it makes sense to allow them to be treated like any other voter at that point.
So if you still haven't registered,
you ought to do it as soon as possible. This is not a situation where you want to wait until the last minute.
and that's because there's a good chance that deadline could change again. Earlier today, attorneys for all sides of this issue went toe-to-toe in federal appeals court. Now, some are still arguing for a complete reversal, but the Secretary of State's office is actually asking the court to make the deadline October 16th. Her office telling the court, it's become apparent that extending the deadline to October 23rd comes at the cost and risk to other important administrative work and timelines necessary to ensure the orderly administration of the election. Now, if Hobbs's request is granted, that would also ensure that voters who registered after October 5th would still be able to vote and their votes count. Now, we're still waiting for the federal appeals court to make that decision, and we will, of course, update you once that comes down. Questions, concerns? You can always email us at yourvote@abc15.com. I'm Nicole Valdez, ABC 15, Arizona.
Nicole.